Great. We will
Nice
welcome.
pictures in the background.
Thanks. So welcome to our all community council meeting. I would officially call this meeting to order. We have three kind of new agenda items and one kind of Q&A at the end. Our first one is a Public Works grants update with Shane. So if Shane is out there.
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Oh,
about that.
Eric, great. You
Yeah,
got
sorry.
Eric. Eric is playing the role
sorry,
of Shane
yeah.
tonight.
No, Shane is unavailable, so he asked me to step in. So I will see if I can give a quick rundown. Not sure if this is something that has been discussed or generally the let me see if I can find my window here. So in case it hasn't been discussed before, can you see this spreadsheet of our bridges?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good, thank you. So I don't know how much history to go into here, but we have 61 bridges in Missoula County that are over 20 feet long. And bridges that are over 20 feet long are required to be on the National Bridge Inventory. And that requires an inspection every 2 years by the State Department of Transportation. And the good thing about those bridges that are over 20 feet is they are also eligible for federal funding if they ever need to be replaced. And if you can see from this list, our first 15 bridges here are the ones that we're really focused on trying to get some activity going for the replacements. These two dark colored ones, North Avenue and Lolo Street, are both already in a federally funded program for replacement. North Avenue we've been working on since 2015. It's also known as the Maclay Bridge. Lolo Street, we received a Protect grant as a joint application with the city and the Missoula Metropolitan Planning Organization the past few months. So we have those two being designed. So of the remaining 15, if you look at this efficiency rating, this is a scale basically 0 to 100, and obviously 100 being the best. And so you can see that we have a lot of bridges that are pretty low on the scale. And those are the ones we're focused on trying to find federal funding for, because if you look at these top 15 bridges, we're looking at about $68 million in projects. And last fiscal year, we had about $60,000 available for project work after all of our essential costs were covered. So clearly, we are not in the position that we need to be for replacing all of our bridges. So we've been actively pursuing these federal grant applications the past couple of years. And so we have these bridges. And actually, before I move on, I should say that these two here in the middle, Schwartz Creek and Petty Creek, we are not looking for replacement on those. Those have some more, I'll say, minor deficiencies that can be fixed with a rehabilitation project. So we have a preliminary engineering report on those two structures, and you'll see their costs a little over $1 million. So not as pressing, but at least gives us a target for funding that we can pursue in the future after our more critical bridges are taken care of, or if there's a different funding source that is more appropriate for rehabilitation versus replacement. So with that, these are the way that we are breaking our grant applications up. We applied for one big bridge bundle last year through this RAISE application. It was not successful, so we are trying again this year with that second round of funding. We were encouraged to do so, thinking that after those early projects were awarded, that some of our projects like these would be a pretty good fit for that application. So these three that we're applying for in one group, they're kind of the worst ones. You'll see based on not only their sufficiency rating, but also age. That Sunset Hill Road Bridge in Potomac, built in 1907, still functioning, but is certainly a hindrance to the locals that need to use it, and certainly for our maintenance activities. So those three are pretty critical structures. And of course, people in Seeley Lake or maybe throughout Missoula County know that Boy Scout Road Bridge has been closed since November of 2023. So obviously an important one to replace as well. And when you look at those costs combined for just those three bridges, we're nearly $22 million. And that's just not something that's feasible for Missoula County to fund locally. So we have that bridge bundle. And then you'll see the second group, kind of a smaller as far as size of the bridges go, but still in that target of around $20 million. That seemed to be the desirable ask for this RAISE program. So those are bridges that we looked at after the initial application last year and decided that these should be included as well while that federal funding is available. So these bridge applications are due in the end of January here. So we're getting close on getting that application together. And we won't know if we're successful until about August, I believe, is when that announcement will be made. So as a backup and to make the best effort we can, there are two other funding sources. One that will also apply kind of on an overlap with the RAISE grants is the PROTECT grant. So we have another group there that, depending on the grant source, sometimes, you know, these bridges that we have in this one are kind of targeted at a little more sensitive to resiliency, like Craft Creek, Glacier Creek, Owl Creek. Those are all timber bridges, actually Cold Creek as well. They're all timber bridges in a heavily forested area. So there's always that risk of damage by wildfire or the risk of not being able to carry adequate loads if they're fighting fires in the area. They're also the sole access for those areas. So the PROTECT grant is a good source for these four if we're not successful with the other ones. And if it all fails and worst comes to worst, then the last funding source that we can apply for this year would be, as you see there, due in November. And that would be we would include all the bridges that we're applying for now. And you'll see that that's just almost $31 million. And that BIP program is called the Bridge Investment Program. And the downside to this one is that it does require a 20% local match. So if we are successful, you'll see that Missoula County, even though $6 million is a big number to come up with for local funding. But when you invest $6 million to get $31 million worth of projects, you know, if we're all out of options from these other sources that don't require a match, then, you know, that's the route we have to go, see if we're successful at that point, and keep investing in our infrastructure with some local dollars. So I know that was fast, but trying to stay on our 10-minute window. I hope that covered everything. And if there are any questions, or if we want to save those to the end, I'd be happy to do either one.
Looks like Dave's got a question or a comment or something.
Yeah, just a little bit of clarification. So folks have probably heard us refer to RAISE grants quite a bit, actually, and even tonight. And what RAISE stands for, a little bit of trivia here. RAISE refers to Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. That's what that means. I have to remind myself periodically. I've been accustomed to just referring to it as RAISE, but there you go.
Oh, how about PROTECT? What's that one? Because I don't remember.
I did not check that one out. So I'm sure it stands for, I'm not sure. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And Dave, when we started, RAISE was build. It had a different, Eric, do you remember what build stood for?
And before that, it was Tiger.
Yeah. So
I remember Tiger. I don't remember what build stands for.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it won't be the RAISE grant this time next year. It'll have a new name.
Probably. If,
That is
yes,
correct.
if there is one out there still.
Yeah. Well, anybody has any questions about these bridges, please ask away. There you go. Stephanie's got one.
I was just wondering, do we think that things are going to change with the new administration?
In terms of bridges,
In terms of funding? Are these programs at risk? I guess is what I'm asking.
I think it's anybody's guess, really.
Yeah, probably.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But this administration does seem pretty excited to change everything. So it could mean these things get changed too. I really have no idea.
Yeah. Okay. That was all.
If anybody else has any insight, they should share it.
Well, I'll just jump in. I think Josh is exactly right. It's way too early to tell precisely what policies the new administration will bring to the table as it relates to infrastructure. But I think we just keep hammering away on the fact that what we're talking about here is critical infrastructure that our economy depends upon. And this is not just frivolous spending, but really part of what we need as a society. And I've heard this administration previously and also in the run up to the election and taking office make positive comments about infrastructure. So we shall see.
Yeah. All right. If there aren't any other questions related to bridges or infrastructure, we should say thanks to Eric, and appreciate your jumping on in the evening. And welcome Heidi West to come chat with us about the Rural Grant Program.
All right, there I am. All right, thank you for having me. And I've been on a tour to visit all the community councils in Missoula County. So I haven't made it to all of them yet, and there are varying abilities to share presentations. So some of you have seen this presentation already, and some have just heard me talk about it. So I was going to run through a presentation real quick that summarizes what all was funded in 2024 with the Rural Grant Program. And let's make sure I can share it. All right, good, able to see it now. All right. So in 2024, the Rural Grant Program awarded almost $25,000 to 15 projects in 7 communities across Missoula County. And these projects reached over 5,000 people, probably more. It's a little hard to quantify the reach of some of these projects. Are the slides advancing for you?
We're still looking at the county map.
Okay, let me maybe reshare. Let me stop and try again. I'm not sure why it's not moving forward. Also, I'm at home, so my kids are walking behind me. All right, try this again. All right, this time it's working for me, so I hope it's working for you. Okay, so the Rural Grant Program was created to support community-driven projects that enhance the quality of life in rural areas of Missoula County. And there are 2 different grants that are a part of this program. And so the first one is a micro grant, and those are for grants between $100 and $500. And these are supposed to be really kind of quick turnaround projects. And in 2024, we awarded 9 of these micro grants. And then the second grant program is an impact grant. So that funds projects that range from $501 to $4,000, and we have $20,000 available. And this is a grant that is for larger scale projects, and that might also take longer to complete. So folks that are successful with this particular grant have till the end of the calendar year to complete their projects. And this last year, we funded, I believe, 6 of those. So the first micro grant that we funded last year was a program that Bonner Elementary School applied for, and they were the wellness initiatives for their school. So that was split between hygiene kits for 5th grade students and support for a staff wellness program. And so 34 students participated in this program, and 55 staff members participated in the overall wellness challenges. And the next grant we funded was a Bitterroot Trail cleanup. So the Bitterroot Trail Preservation Alliance applied for this funding, and it supported a cleanup day that went all the way from Lolo Creek down to Trader Brothers. And this is one of those projects where it's really hard to quantify how many people benefit. Obviously, there's the volunteers that showed up and used the grabbers, but then it also benefits everyone who's biking or walking along this corridor or driving. The Sealy Lake Market received a micro grant for the 2nd year in a row to support the rental of a portable toilet that's required to operate this little market. And it runs from Father's Day weekend until Labor Day each year, and about 200 people attend each market day. And they did expand the number of vendors they have in 2024 as well. And then Sealy was a very successful community this last year. They got both micro grants and impact grants. So another grant that went to the Sealy community was a grant that was applied for on behalf of the Clearwater Valley Bear Smart Working Group. And this supported an event that took place in the Dogtown neighborhood, and it was a big education event, and also an opportunity for people to sign up and receive bear safe trash cans. And along with about 1/3 of the neighborhood's residents attending, there was also a mother grizzly bear with her free cubs that was in and out of the neighborhood all day. So a good reminder of why being conscious of living with wildlife is important. So Evero applied and received for their first micro grant this last year. And so they have a lovely historic schoolhouse that was in need of a roof replacement. And this facility now functions as a community center. So the county was able to help support the replacement of that roof. Then we had really consistent microgrant applications all year long. And so we actually have several projects that are still in process right now. And so these are grants that they haven't reached that 90-day closeout window yet. So the Swan Valley School applied for some archery equipment to use in their PE classes for their 4th through 8th grade students. And then there's a group of citizens that has organized to provide something for kids to do on Fridays in the Condon area, since they have switched to a 4-day school week. And so they call themselves SMART with lots of A's. And so they applied for a micro grant and received one to just buy materials, basically, to run a variety of different programs. And then our last micro grant of the year was applied for by the Boys and Girls Club of Missoula County. And they received a grant to purchase emotional wellness supplies. So those are like high quality fidgets and noise canceling headphones that are used in their after school programs. And because those have to be in rural communities, they're specifically for programs that are located in Lolo, Target Range, and DeSmet. And so then I'll run impact grid real quick. So again, Sealy was super successful this year. So the Sealy Lake Elementary School applied for a $4,000 grant to add a climber to the school playground, and that was installed this summer. And so that is an example of something that serves, not only the students that are enrolled at the school, but the larger community, and anyone who visits Sealy, because this is one of their main developed playground spaces in that community. There's other parks, but not a lot of other playgrounds. And then Clearwater Resource Council received a grant to purchase an outboard motor for their boat. And so they use this boat to do water quality testing all along the Clearwater chain of lakes. And they monitor for different nutrients and also for invasive species. And so this benefits, anyone and everyone that lives in the valley, but also everyone who visits the Clearwater Valley. Bonner Milltown received a grant. So Friends of Two Rivers applied for a grant to install a native plant garden. And this was a really cool project that was a partnership between the Little History Center that's in Bonner and the 6th grade students at Bonner Elementary School. And so all the kids actually researched native plants, put together a display that I think will be that people can go see in the spring. And then they actually went in and planted all of the plants this fall. And so this will have a dedication in the spring. And I think this grant is a really great example of how, one thing can lead to another good thing. And so as a result of this project, the History Center also ended up receiving an additional $5,000 grant from the Garnet Preservation Association, and that is to create another outdoor exhibit that is specific to the railroad history in Bonner. And then the Travelers Rest State Park also received an impact grant. So this one was the second year in a row that Missoula County supported the Indigenous interpretations and demonstrations that are happening at the park during the summer season. And so you can see the different workshops that were available this last summer. And throughout the summer, about 150 visitors to the park attended these demonstrations. And then our one of our impact grants that is still currently active is the Missoula Symphony in the Schools program. And so they received $4,000 in funding to bring musicians to Target Range, Bonner, Woodman, Clinton, and the Lolo school districts. They're either working with band or band and orchestra. It's all tailored specifically to what that school needs and wants. And so this is a great example of a program that doesn't quite line up with our program year. And so they're constrained by the school year. And so we gave them a contract extension this year so that they can continue to work with these students and these schools through the spring as well, since that lines up better with the school year. Then I believe this is the last impact grant. So Target Range School also received a grant to improve their playground. And so this grant was a part of a much bigger redo of their playground and their sports courts and their grass spaces. And so this grant specifically paid for the installation of their new basketball hoops. And now they also have new volleyball courts. And then last summer, they also got a new playground. So really cool, large project. And it serves the students that are attending the school, but of course, also the immediate neighborhood. And it seems like it's getting a lot of use. Then the whole reason I'm here is to remind people that there are some deadlines that are coming up. So the first round of microgrant funding closes at the end of the month, but then you can keep applying every month at the end of the month until we have committed all of the funds for that program. And then the impact grant is only available once a year. So that is available now and will close on February 28th. And so this is the one opportunity that we have in a year to apply for that larger pool of funding. And you can log on to our website to actually see the criteria look at the grant application before you, start creating a profile so you can know exactly what you're getting into. And then if there's any questions about a project or whether or not something is eligible for funding, you can always reach out to me and I'm happy to visit about it. And I'll stop sharing and see if there's any questions. Thank you for sharing the link.
Tom.
Thanks for that. And Heidi, thanks for coming up to our rather lively meeting last week. And Dave, we really appreciate your attendance. Well, a lot of is coming out of that. But Heidi, the question I have for you is, there's what was referred to as a homestead cabin. You probably heard that mentioned several times. That's on Double Arrow Ranch, a common area that has both a cabin and a pavilion, and is a known place for drug dealing and other nefarious things. All of the common areas in Darloa are public by law. So it's really more like a Missoula County park than it's not private. So they have an aged game camera. I went to the committee meeting that oversees those, and they would like to upgrade it to 3 cameras that are remotely accessible. And it's about $1,000, of which they have 500. Would that be eligible for a micro grant? I mean, they're a nonprofit. They're a 501c4, not a C3, but could they get a micro grant?
I think as long as it's a publicly available space, like anyone can access the space, you could make the argument. And then you never know what you're competing against. So as long as it scores appropriately, and we have a review committee that makes sure it has, public benefit, that there's a community need, and I think it sounds like there is a need. And as long as it benefits, it can't be for just the users of the Double Arrow Ranch. It would have to be a publicly available space. Then I think it would be an eligible project.
Okay, then I'll have them to go ahead and apply for it. Thanks.
Yeah, I would say, just to add to that, I think the only thing that we've really identified that is not eligible is if you are a private business and you're applying for something that will only benefit your clientele, that would not be an eligible project, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. But this would be benefiting law enforcement and environmental health. Okay, so I'll have them go ahead, and it might be February before they apply, but I think it fits a micro grant funding level pretty well.
Yeah, that's great.
Thanks a lot, Heidi.
All right, thank you.
All right, next up is Kyla, who's going to talk with us about special districts and candidate filings.
Yes, good evening. This is just a reminder that the special district candidate filing, which all council seats are supposed to be elected seats, closes Monday, February 10th at 5 p.m. So if you or one of your council members have not filed yet and are still hoping to seek reappointment, this would be the time to do it. And I'm just going to drop a little link in the chat so you can go to a resource on the website. This is all done through the elections office, so you can reach out to them, and I'll drop that in the information as well. That was it.
All right, anybody have any questions? This can feel complicated or intimidating, but Kyla will walk you through it if you need. And just a reminder, our hope for the community councils is that people run for these seats and we aren't put in the position of having to interview and appoint somebody. Bonnie.
Okay, I want to make sure I don't disconnect myself. Okay, I was filling out the paperwork and I wanted to make sure I got the right paperwork. At the top, does it say declaration for nomination and oath of candidacy, special district? Is that the form?
Yes, it is, Bonnie.
Okay, sometimes I get confused. My computer's so old. How old is it? it doesn't even want to talk to the internet anymore. That's how old it is. It kept telling me I had to download a new web browser, but it's too old to download a new web browser. So I'm in a state here. My iPad works just fine, but it doesn't print. So, you know, I have to connect to a printer. Okay, well, that's all I have to say.
Thanks. All right, if that's that, our last item here is to kind of go round robin and report back a bit on what's going on in your community council. Kylie, do you want to kind of lead us through this?
Sure, no problem. I see a couple people on from West Valley. So Tom or Reagan, do you have anything to share tonight?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Our last meeting, we had Heidi come out and give us a presentation about the grant projects, and so that was the highlight of our meeting, and she did a good job. That's all I know for now.
Anything
Hello?
from you? All right, thanks.
All right, if there's nothing else from West Valley, we'll go on to Swan Valley. I see Brian on tonight. Brian, did you have anything?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, great. Yeah, since we're talking about grants, I thought it would be a great opportunity. We recently noticed that there was a grant awarded to a third-party nonprofit organization in the Swan, which actually does really good work. But our little concerns that we have and from our community is we were sort of caught off guard because we were actually informed by the Pathfinder and then late after the decision was actually made. So we're hoping for a little bit better proactive communication. You know, this was a 219,000 plus, grant that was awarded. It came out of the Missoula County Office of Emergency Management. We do have knowledge of what the Valley needs, and at the same time, the Swan Valley Emergency Services last year was trying to apply for a grant and funding for a replacement Type 1 engine that's definitely needed. We have some old equipment that's not functional, which I believe this grant, but we have very little details of this. So we're hoping in the future that between the commissioners and the administrative office, before decisions were made, that a simple email or conversation could be conducted prior to making a decision, so we could maybe be a little bit more engaged and share some insight into the needs of the rural area. So moving forward, to make the formal request is we would like to get actually the complete summary of the grant, which includes the original request, the scope, the actual dollar amounts, the required execution, and then the approval documentation, and then also the auditing features for that, because we're getting a lot, some feedback from our people in the Valley that are concerned about how this was created. Hello?
Brian, this is Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Could you describe a little more what it is that you're referencing by way of a grant?
Yep, it is. I was hoping you guys know, this is the message we got from Missoula County. Swan Valley Connections, Natural Resource Advocacy and Education nonprofit located in Conneaut received $219,000 from Missoula County Office of Emergency Management. This was awarded back in October at December 17th public meeting. Read more, and then it goes to the Pathfinder blurb that they had out there.
I'm sure we can get you the information you're looking for.
Yeah, let's start with there. But for future, we've been caught from a rural community. I don't know if other ones of decisions being made with lack of communication. So we're hoping that is one of the bridges that we could close this year with proactive communication to the rural areas.
Yeah, without learning a little bit more about the grant, I can't make any commitments just by way of what the process is that a specific grant is reviewed, and it may have little latitude in terms of what flexibility there might be surrounding other potential applicants for the grant.
Well, I'm not
So-
so concerned about the grant. Let's just take it from the point is, let's take it as a learning curve for maybe all the rural sites to be aware of, right? You tell us how this unfolded without the knowledge of the community council. That's what we're more concerned about anything, because there's a definitely communication grant. I'm not questioning the grant itself per se, but the communication path. And that's why we have these monthly meetings, is try to better our communication.
Yeah,
Yep,
I'm
great to have folks from the Swan here tonight. Appreciate that.
I'm going to echo
Thanks.
Dave, Brian, and look into this. I can't speak to it without looking into it.
Oh, perfect. Just
So,
let me
hey,
know. I've
commissioners.
just put my request in. Great. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, commissioners.
Chris.
Yeah, so just really quickly, so this is part of the larger award that went to Missoula County as part of the wildfire defense grant that is actually a county-wide grant. I think what you're referring to, Brian, is the piece of work that will be done up in the Swan. And that was done in coordination with the fire department there, Swan Valley Connections and others. I'm not sure if Adrian specifically was at your community council meeting, but I know others from Lands and Communities was up there talking about the grant when they were putting it together. So this is not a grant, for example, that could purchase a fire truck for that. It's specifically around fuel mitigation around homes.
Sure,
So-
sure. It's in conjunction. I know exactly what it is because I'm part of the DNRC, and I'm actually part of the Swan Valley Emergency Services as well. So you got multiple grants and coordination going through. The Firewise community is very strong in the, it's one of the top priorities, but it's part of that, but understanding how that was basically granted. And then the most important part is we have to answer to, what's the scope? What is it being used for? And then how do we audit that money? It's a big grant. That's $219,000. We don't want to pass that up. That's a lot of money for the Swan area, which is great. So all we're looking for is transparency.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying, Brian, is that did happen because, again, folks came to the community council and talked about this when that application was happening. As far as the auditing and those kinds of things, that is a county function to be responsible for that as part of our annual audit. There's not some separate audit that's going to happen at the community council level.
If you, I've been to the community council meetings pretty much, and we have the meeting minutes. So if you can definitely provide where that was discussed and what was proposed out there, definitely, because then we're missing something on our end, because it did come to a shock to us. So please provide that information with the other list as well.
Yeah, we can definitely have the folks from community planning reach back out to you guys and go back over what they discussed more than a year ago when this was being put together. So
sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Tom Browder, Sealy Lake.
Okay, thanks, Kyla. See, you want to get all us edgy folks from up north. So as Heidi and Dave and Shane know, we had a very lively council meeting last week. We have some concerned parents, and this has been percolating for a while, but in November, and to me, it's a great example of how our councils can work. We brought them to the council and there was somewhat emotional meeting. So I invited them back for the January meeting, and I think our barn has never been that full. I mean, we were spilling out into the hallway. But the gist of it is that there are really 4 areas in Sealy that the community feels have been neglected, could have been managed better, however we want to say it. One is law enforcement because of the drug problem we have, and our resident deputy, Bob Parcell, was there. Another is what the county calls community decay. And really, we had the 2022 ordinance, and we talked about that. Another is animal control, because all of that comes out of Missoula. And another is the fact you can be on hold for 6 or 8 or 9 minutes for 911. So, and Dave, we appreciate your sort of quiet guidance as the meeting progressed. But towards the end, everyone realized, and there were people there that I know have lived in Sealy all their lives and have never been to a council meeting. So that part of it was really good. We had that, the people, the kind of quiet people in the community who are tired of, drugs being sold within a couple blocks of the school, certain properties looking terrible when other properties have been fixed up. So all this stuff. So the council voted to have a subcommittee, which will be managed by 2 of our council members, Jeanette Smith and Gary Swain. And they had about 10 volunteers and will have their first meeting tomorrow night. So that kind of community engagement we totally love. The plan is probably to get a neighborhood watch program, which I think we had years ago, a more formal thing. So instead of this person complaining, that person complaining about different things, we get it organized and consolidated. So that's really good. And, I have a lot of hopes for that happening. We will be coming to the county. I mean, we'll want, since Adrian Beck has 911 and animal control. Well, I'm not sure I'd want that job, but those are 2 areas that they will look into. Obviously, the decay properties are, I think they're pretty well known, and that's going to take a while. And then things like, can we work with Jeremiah Peterson and his department to get a better handle on like known drug offenders? So, and I think, Dave, you probably heard all 4 of those, and I thought it was an excellent meeting. But there will be follow-up, and I will report to this meeting, as we move ahead. We're hoping they get a neighborhood watch program set up, that we have some substantive meetings with environmental health and the sheriff's department. And yeah, it was positive. It was emotional at times. But again, I think that surfaced some community involvement from people that had sort of said, well, nothing's ever going to happen. So that's my report. It was good. Really appreciate those of you that came up to weather the meeting with us.
Thanks, Tom. Danica? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, before we go on. Yeah, thanks for that, Tom. And I'll just extend the same offer that I did at the meeting. And you hit on this also, that when appropriate, when specific topics are being taken up, please do reach out and we'll get the appropriate staff and personnel there. We had a conversation with the sheriff's office and undersheriff the other day following the community council meeting. And I think it will be really helpful for folks to just have an opportunity to do some level setting and get everyone on the same page in terms of what is legal, because some of what folks might want to have happen, there's no legal justification or ability to do it. And there's some nuances there that obviously in a full-on community council setting, we could not hash out. So we're available and ready to deploy folks to your neck of the woods whenever we're called upon and asked to do so.
That's great. Thanks. We really appreciate it.
You bet.
Tom, have you scheduled a meeting with Jeremiah?
No, this subcommittee will meet tomorrow night with the community members. And after that, I'll get with our 2 delegates, our 2 council delegates, and see kind of how they prioritize things. I have a feeling that the drug thing is probably going to be number 1 because, we had parents at the meeting last week saying, look, my kids walked by active drug dealing on the way to Sealy Lake Elementary. Well, on the surface, that sounds crazy. What does it actually look like? I think if we get, neighborhood watch, more people looking, being aware, we'll find out more detail. But we'll let you know when we schedule that meeting, if there's any advice you have for us.
Yeah, my advice would be to talk to the sheriff sooner than later, because you want to make sure your folks don't head down a road that leads them to conclusions that aren't legal or possible or fundable or reasonable even. I would get with the sheriff. Our sheriff, though those folks may be dissatisfied with their level of law enforcement in Sealy, our sheriff is an expert on law enforcement and an expert on crime and criminal activity. And you guys have access to that expertise. And I would suggest you take advantage of that expertise before drawing your own conclusions and taking matters into your own hands and potentially putting yourself in danger or treading on the freedoms of others.
Right. I agree. And I think the community conversation, which from September of 2022, everybody was out, we had a great turnout. I think some expectations were probably set. They were a little high. And again, you got to work at these things. But yeah, I will be, I think with the council overseeing this, we'll be judicious and careful.
Right. I would just say get with the sheriff first would be my free advice. Free to ignore too. You guys do whatever you like.
Oh no. And
our sheriff, I don't know if you've interacted with him, but Jeremiah's a great guy. He's generous, kind, thoughtful, good listener. Like he'll want to work with you.
Good. Yeah. Right, thanks, Josh.
You bet. Regan.
Hi. So Tom, you mentioned drug use, and for those who don't know that, I know the commissioners know this, but I work for Missoula Public Health. I'm the Frenchtown Community Coalition Coordinator. So all I do is underage substance use prevention. So I just want to let you know if there's anything I can do to help. If you guys want to do an opioid overdose reversal training at a community council, I mean, I'm happy to do this on my own time in the evening. We do hidden in plain sight, teaching parents and adults the red flags that indicate substance use among youth or anything like that. I'd be happy to bring that up and help however I can. So just feel free to holler if there's anything I can do to help.
Great. Thanks, Megan. Really appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and go to you, Danica.
Thanks, Kyla. All right, well, looks like hot off the press, we were just notified that we were awarded our grant we applied for from Parks and Rec. So that was for an ice rink in Lolo. So we're super excited about that. I'm sure construction will start on that next year. Obviously, we're kind of already halfway through the winter, but we're really excited to have that new recreation amenity here in Lolo. Other than that, our last community council meeting not too much there to report on, but one thing that is happening is the US 93 corridor study. They are releasing their recommendations. I listened in on the Public Works meeting where they presented to you, the commissioners, but they also, pardon my dogs. They're holding an open house tonight and tomorrow, so we're excited about that.
Thanks, Danica. Let's see, East Missoula, Sue or Stephanie?
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Thank you. We had Cindy Kennedy from Grants, one of Heidi's co-workers, come out at our community council meeting last week to give the presentation on the grants, and she did an excellent job as well. And then we also had the fire chief and assistant fire chief from the East Missoula Fire Department talk about the upcoming levy that will be on the ballot come May. So that was a real exciting topic and very educational as far as the amount of money that is between like the City of Missoula Fire Department, the actual rural fire department, and then where East Missoula Fire Department sits. So it was quite interesting on the three different levels of money involved from a homeowner's point of view as to what it costs to run all of the departments. So we're hoping that the levy will pass for out here because they are getting busier. We also have 2 seats that will be open on within our council. One of them, I believe, is going to run for reelection. The other one will not be. And so a question I have, Kyla, for you then would be, would my alternate automatically be moved up into that open position, or does she need to apply by filling out like the new form to run for the active open seat?
For the active open seat, due to the special district filing, she would need to file with the elections office for that seat.
Okay, so even as the alternate, it's
Yes,
not an automatic
yes,
move
because
up kind of
no,
thing?
it's a true election,
Okay.
so she would need to file just like any other community member who might be
Okay.
interested in the seat.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, I'm very interested in what Tom had to say about the community decay and the drug problem, because we experience some of the same or similar situations here in East Missoula. So I would be very interested in knowing what are some of the steps that can be taken to mitigate that problem. And of course, working with the Sheriff's Department has been a valuable resource when there's known drug activity going on out here. And so that the legality portions of that has been very eye-opening as well. So yeah, any future communication on that, I would love to be included in your loop there, Tom, because the smaller communities, I think, are seeing the bigger impacts. And the drug use, we don't have the school problem that you guys would be experiencing, but where I'm seeing and hearing about a lot of the drug activity going on is at the new Shaw Run parking lot. It's incredibly dark there at night. And so I am going to try and fill out a grant application for lighting for that parking area, because I think even with just a little bit of lighting, that might deter some of these drug deals going on. But in speaking with the Sheriff's Department, they've been really good about stepping up their patrol out here. And so far, we haven't had any problem with that. So, but that's about all that's going on out here. Stephanie, unless you had something you'd like to add.
I did. I want to say thank you for accepting our our offer to come to our meeting next month, Dave. I kind
Yes,
of
thank
feel
you.
like once the Aspire got accepted to be annexed into the city, I think a lot of people have questions about annexation. Like, is my neighbor going to annex? If my neighbor does annex, what's going to happen to that property? Can they do anything they want? So I just feel like there's more questions that are coming up from the community about who can annex, how can they annex, when can they annex, and I do appreciate you coming to the meeting because it's not something that I had answers for when they were coming up at the meeting last week. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you.
We'll be there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clinton, Bonnie, or Frankie, if you're still on.
Well, I'm spokesperson. I wanted to say that we had what we thought was a great turnout. We had approximately 10 attendees and 3 online. Heidi, she's just been all over the place. She was at our meeting as well this last Thursday. I think it was last Thursday. She presented for us. Heidi, I did want to ask you one question. You stated that you were going into a different part of the program or something, and that you have a replacement, that her name was Claire. And I was wondering if I could get Claire's last name for our records.
You know, I will have to get that to you because I don't remember. And she doesn't start until the beginning of February. So I'll have to look it up and I'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And we also had Adrienne Hopkins from the Missoula Aging Services. She was able to answer a lot of questions about the new program that has to do with assisting our aging community with doctor's appointments and getting people volunteering, and then people being able to get people to take them to appointments that they require somebody with them. So that was really good. And we had lots of questions about that. We also reminded our community members that there is a deadline for the candidacy soon. And we all know that's on the 10th of next month. And then Chris also recently submitted a letter to the commissioners, given our results to our Clinton Community Count, our survey of what our community was looking for answers for, or topics that they'd like to discuss, concerns that they have. So that if it hasn't been already, it will be submitted to our commissioners. And that is it. And I don't know if Frankie had anything she wanted to add or not.
Hi, thank you. I just had a question. So one of the top concerns on our survey is that folks are interested in walking paths or sidewalks. And I'm trying to think of Clinton. I don't know that there are many sidewalks, but who would we get from the county to come out and talk to us about that kind of stuff?
Hey, hang on. a sec. There we go. That'd be a public works issue. So we could arrange to have Shane or Eric come join you at one of your community council meetings.
Oh, okay. Should we send them an email then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And if you need anything, Frankie, reach out to me and I'll help you do it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You bet, of course.
And I think that's it. So.
All right. I think we had John join us from Bonner. Bonner, did you have anything to share?
Sorry, I don't have my mute button. I think, is Jane on the call? I think she might have a more thorough report ready.
I don't see her on the call tonight.
Oh, okay. No major update. We're planning a community development meeting sort of, where we're planning on inviting a couple of the property owners in the area. We're thinking maybe in March or April, just to chat with them, see what they're maybe planning for development. And yeah, considering applying for a micro grant for the rural grant program, and that's all that's coming to mind. Yeah, no major updates.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yep. That wraps up our round robin tonight. If there's anyone else have anything else to share, go ahead and raise your hand or turn your mic on. Otherwise, back to you, Commissioner.
All right. Unless anybody has anything else, I just want to say thanks all for giving us part of your evening, and we'll see you next time. Oh, I see Sue Holden has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about the late question there, Commissioner Slotnick. I don't know if you recall our conversation when you guys came out for the stewardship awards to Jack. And I've been trying to get a copy of the lease for the Friends of the Children shelter and the law enforcement training that's held at Mount Jumbo School. Any suggestions on how I can get those copies? I'm getting some resistance from Missoula County Public Schools, and it's been really hard trying to get a hold of anybody through Friends of the Children. So, any suggestions on how I can get copies of those lease agreements?
So make sure everyone understands too. So you want to get a copy of a lease agreement between MCPS and Friends of the, is it Friends of the Children?
Well, you had suggested in our conversations,
Yeah.
you wanted me to get a copy of the lease that Friends of the Children has with MCPS, as
Okay.
well as law enforcement, because law enforcement uses part of the school for
Okay.
training. And
And
so
this
then
was
they,
because, and this was because you were hoping to get access to the school?
because my interest was in turning the school into an actual community center with the possibility
Okay.
of a small grocery store. And you had talked about a 40-year lease. That was kind of the roll along that we were talking about. And that was why you wanted me to get a hold
Yeah.
of a copy of the leases.
Thanks for
But
the,
I'm running into major resistance in getting those.
okay. Well, so did you reached out to MCPS?
Yes.
Who did you talk to? Or who did you try and talk with?
I don't have my notes right in front of me at the moment, but it was a gentleman who just said it was not a matter of public record.
Mhm. Well,
And I didn't know what to say or what to do to him because he was pretty adamant about releasing any kind of information like that to
interesting.
me.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let me think on this a little bit. I'm surprised, given they're a public entity,
Yeah.
that's their response. Uh, Let me dig into it a little bit. I can reach out to MCPS and ask them,
Okay.
and go from there. And you have my email. Just send me a note. But I will reach out in the near future and ask them.
Okay.
I can give
Okay.
it a shot.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie.
I wanted to ask a question to Reagan. Is that okay?
Absolutely. That's great. I'm glad you are. Reagan's super good at her job. We should take advantage of her offer.
Well, I was listening to what she was saying, and I don't know if Clinton has that concern. And the only way one would know is to offer you as a guest speaker, and then maybe we'll see how many parents, are concerned with their children, even though they're young. I mean, it just seems like kids are getting younger and younger, experimenting with things they shouldn't be experimenting with.
Yeah.
And I think we already have somebody scheduled, or we're going to have somebody scheduled for next month. But I'm thinking in the future, I would love to have you come out at the Clinton Council and speak to anybody that's willing to show up. With it being winter, sometimes it's not so easy to get people to show up. So, but maybe, if parents have a concern and they see, that they have somebody that is familiar and experienced in the topic. So, where are you located out of, Reagan? Out of
Yeah.
Missoula City?
So I'm actually in Frenchtown. Live in Frenchtown, work in Frenchtown. My grant specifically for Frenchtown, but I work for Missoula Public Health, so it's very unique. But everything I do is out here, so I'm definitely well versed in working in small communities on this topic.
So you're not part of a council, are you?
I am. I'm part of West Valley.
West Valley?
Mhm.
Okay. So I guess what I need to do is look for West Valley's email address, and then I could email you that way, or do you have a problem with giving me your email address here?
Yeah, I actually just put my email address in the chat a little bit ago, but I can put it back in. It's my first name, last name at ftbronx.org. That's probably
Okay,
the
I
easiest
see
way
it.
to contact me. But yeah, I'm happy to schedule something and let me know what you'd like me to discuss. We do all sorts of presentations. I don't have access to Clinton's data. Most schools in Montana do the Montana Prevention Needs Assessment, but I can try to get my hands on that to kind of gauge where Clinton's at, and if we need to talk more about alcohol or e-cigarette use or anything like that, happy to dive into it a little bit more. So just let me know what you need from me, and I'm happy to show up and help.
Okay, well, I need to make sure I discuss this with all the other council members before I open my mouth and give you a date. So, but yeah, I have your email address and I will discuss this with the other members and we'll see if we can't get you to come out one night, maybe when it's like earlier where it stays lighter longer. Even if
Yes.
it's maybe